Right now, you're probably reading this on a device that runs on an operating system developed in America using a microprocessor designed by an American company connected to the internet, which was invented in America. And if you checked your location today, you use GPS, which is an American military system that was open to civilians. And if you've ever searched for anything online, you used an algorithm created by Americans at an American company. And here's what makes this completely insane, because we're not talking about the United States leading in one or two technologies. We're talking about Americans inventing essentially every foundational technology of the modern world, from transistors to integrated circuits, to personal computers, to smartphones, to social media, to artificial intelligence. And the dominance is so complete that even countries that hate America and actively try to build independent tech ecosystems still depend on American innovations from decades ago. And China, which has the second largest economy and massive government investment in technology, still uses operating systems based on American designs and semiconductor manufacturing equipment from American companies, and relies on American-invented internet protocols. And the question nobody really examines is why. Because having wealth or good universities doesn't fully explain it, since Europe has wealthy countries and excellent universities, but hasn't produced equivalent technological innovations. And Japan was the technology leader in the 1980s with superior manufacturing, but lost that position and never created platforms that scaled globally. And there are 8 specific reasons that work together, like an engine where each part amplifies the others. And when you understand these 8 mechanisms, you'll see that American technological dominance isn't luck or temporary advantage. It's the result of structural conditions that have existed for over 70 years and continue to drive innovation today. And the first reason is something that sounds almost counterintuitive but turned out to be the foundation of everything else, and that's massive government funding for basic research with no immediate commercial application. And this started seriously after World War II, when the United States government began spending billions annually on research with no clear product in mind. And here's why this changed everything: because most companies won't fund basic research because the payoff is too uncertain and too distant, and shareholders want quarterly returns. Not discoveries that might matter in 20 years, but the U.S. government, through agencies like DARPA and the National Science Foundation and the National Institutes of Health, funded research into fundamental questions about physics and mathematics and computer science and biology. And this created a knowledge base that private companies could later exploit. And think about concrete examples. Because the internet started as ARPANET, which was a Defense Department project in the 1960s to create a communication network that could survive nuclear attack, and nobody thought about commercial applications. They were solving a military problem. But the protocols they developed became TCP/IP, which is the foundation of all internet communication. And GPS was developed by the Air Force starting in the 1970s as a navigation system for missiles and bombers, and cost over $12 billion to deploy, and no private company would ever make that investment. But once the system existed, the government opened it to civilian use, and suddenly, every smartphone and car and airplane could use precision location data for free. And the scale of this government investment is staggering, because the United States spends over $140 billion annually on research and development, and about $30 billion of that goes to basic research with no immediate application. And this has been sustained for decades. And the cumulative effect is that American universities and research labs have explored fundamental questions that later became the basis for entire industries. And here's the mechanism that makes this so powerful. Because basic research creates what economists call positive externalities, where the social benefit exceeds the private benefit, and private markets underinvest in these areas, but government funding can capture those social benefits, and the discoveries made with government money become public knowledge that anyone can use. And this created a commons of scientific knowledge that American companies could exploit. And here's why other countries haven't replicated this. Because it requires sustained political will to fund research that won't show results for decades, and most governments face pressure to spend on immediate needs. And even when other countries do fund research, they often try to direct it towards specific applications rather than funding curiosity-driven investigation. And the American system was unique in giving researchers freedom to explore whatever seemed interesting, and this led to unexpected discoveries that created entirely new fields. And the second reason is what actually turned research into products. and that's the American venture capital system, which provides funding for risky early-stage companies in ways that don't exist anywhere else in the world. And here's how this works, because venture capital firms raise money from wealthy individuals and institutions and invest that money in startups with high failure rates, but potential for enormous returns. And the model is to fund 10 companies knowing that 7 will fail and 2 will break even, and 1 will become massively successful. And that one success generates returns that cover all the losses. And this risk tolerance is culturally embedded in American finance in ways that are almost impossible to replicate, because American bankruptcy laws are debtor-friendly, which means that entrepreneurs who fail can start over. And American culture celebrates risk-taking rather than punishing failure. And investors are willing to lose money on multiple attempts if there's a chance of hitting a massive success. And the numbers show the scale, because the United States attracts over 70% of global venture capital investment, despite having only 4% of world population. And in 2021 alone, American VCs deployed over $300 billion into startups. And compare this to other regions, because Europe has wealthy investors, but venture capital funding is a fraction of American levels, because European bankruptcy laws are harsher and failure carries more stigma and capital gains taxes are higher, which reduces investor returns. And China has grown its venture capital industry, but it's heavily directed by government priorities rather than market opportunities. And here's why this matters for technology. Because transformative innovations are almost always incredibly risky in the early stages, and most people think they'll fail. And companies like Apple and Google and Facebook and Amazon all went through periods where they could have easily died and needed multiple rounds of funding before becoming profitable. And this patient capital that's willing to wait years for returns only exists at scale in the United States. And think about specific examples, because Amazon lost money for years while building infrastructure, and only venture capital funding allowed Bezos to pursue that strategy. And Google was 2 Stanford students with an algorithm and no business model, and VCs funded them for years before advertising revenue materialized. And Facebook was a college social network that could have been a fad, but VCs funded expansion that made it global. And here's the structural advantage. Because the venture capital system is concentrated in specific geographic areas like Silicon Valley and Boston. And this creates networks where investors and entrepreneurs and engineers all know each other, and information flows freely, and deals happen quickly. And this density is almost impossible to recreate, because it emerged organically over decades, and trying to create a new Silicon Valley by building office parks doesn't work, because you can't manufacture the social networks and the accumulated knowledge and the risk-taking culture. And the third reason is something that operates in the background, but explains why innovations happen in America rather than being imported. And that's the unique American university system, which combines research and teaching and has deep connections to industry in ways that European and Asian universities don't. And here's what makes American universities different. Because they're not purely academic institutions focused only on knowledge creation. They actively encourage commercialization of research through technology, transfer offices, and allow professors to start companies and take sabbaticals to work in industry. And this creates a pipeline from research to product that's much faster than in other countries where universities are isolated from commercial activity. And think about how this works in practice, because a professor at Stanford or MIT can do government-funded research and discover something interesting and then start a company to commercialize it while maintaining their academic position. And the university might take an equity stake and help with patents and introduce the professor to venture capitalists. And this ecosystem produced companies like Google, which started as a Stanford research project, and Moderna, which came out of MIT research, and thousands of others. And the scale of this is enormous, because American universities generate over 20,000 patents annually, and these patents become the basis for new companies and products. And compare this to European universities, which traditionally viewed commercial activity as beneath academic dignity, and professors who wanted to start companies often had to leave academia entirely. And Asian universities are primarily teaching institutions, with less emphasis on frontier research. And this cultural difference means that even when other countries produce good research, it often doesn't get commercialized as effectively. And here's the mechanism that makes this sustainable. Because American universities compete intensely for the best faculty and the best students, and offer higher salaries than universities anywhere else. And this creates a brain drain where talented people from every country come to study and work in America, and many of them stay and become American citizens and contribute to American innovation. And the statistics are remarkable because over 50% of STEM PhDs awarded by American universities go to foreign students. And these people are the top talent from their home countries, and American universities attract them with better funding and better facilities and better career prospects. And even those who return home often maintain collaborations with American institutions, and many eventually move back to the United States. And here's why this creates compounding advantage. Because each wave of talent attracts the next wave, and the concentration of smart people working on similar problems creates spontaneous collaborations and unexpected insights. And this density of talent can't be easily replicated, because it requires decades of sustained excellence to build reputation. And the fourth reason is what actually destroyed Soviet technology development, and it's the competitive market structure where multiple companies fight for dominance, and this competition drives faster innovation than centralized planning ever could. And here's why markets outperform planning and technology. Because technological progress is unpredictable, and nobody knows which approaches will work and which will fail. And in a market system, you can have 10 companies trying 10 different approaches simultaneously, and the market selects winners and losers through customer choice. And compare this to planned economies where a central committee picks one approach and dedicates resources to it, and if that approach fails, you've wasted years and billions. And the market mechanism is brutal but efficient, because companies that don't innovate die, and their resources get reallocated to more innovative competitors. And this creates constant pressure to improve. And think about concrete examples, because in the early smartphone era, there were dozens of companies trying different approaches, and most failed. But Apple's iPhone succeeded and captured enormous value, and this success attracted imitators and competition, and within a few years, smartphones were dramatically better and cheaper than the first iPhone. And this rapid improvement only happens with competition, because monopolies have no incentive to innovate quickly, and the American market is large enough that multiple competitors can coexist and fight for market share. And this creates what economists call dynamic efficiency, where the threat of competition drives innovation even when markets appear concentrated. And here's the contrast with other systems. Because the Soviet Union tried to develop computer technology through central planning and assigned research institutes to work on specific problems, but without market feedback, they built systems that nobody wanted, and technology that was generations behind. And China has discovered similar problems because government-directed innovation works for catching up and copying existing technology, but struggles with frontier innovation, because bureaucrats can't predict which technologies will matter. And the fifth reason is something that seems like pure geography, but actually creates massive advantages for innovation. And that's the scale of the American domestic market, which provides a testing ground for new technologies that's larger than any other single market. And here's why market size matters so much for technology. Because new technologies have high fixed costs for development, but low marginal costs for production. And this means companies need large markets to recoup development costs, and the United States offers a market of 330 million people with high incomes and shared language and unified regulations. And compare this to Europe, where the market is fragmented across countries with different languages and regulations and buying habits. And this fragmentation means European companies often stay regional rather than scaling continually, and even the European Union with its common market still has linguistic and cultural barriers that slow adoption. And think about how this plays out, because an American startup can launch a product in English and immediately access the entire US market, and if it succeeds domestically, it has the revenue to expand internationally. But a French startup has to decide whether to launch in French or English, and either choice limits initial market. And this affects everything from social media to e-commerce to software. And American platforms benefit from starting with a huge domestic base that provides revenue and data and network effects before expanding globally. And here's the compounding effect. Because market size determines how much companies can invest in research and development, because larger markets generate more revenue, which funds more R&D, which creates better products, which capture more market share. And American tech companies spend enormous sums on R&D because they have the revenue base to support it. And Amazon spends over $70 billion annually on R&D, and Alphabet spends over $40 billion, and Microsoft spends over $25 billion. And these budgets exceed the entire government research budgets of most countries. And the sixth reason is what makes American innovation so commercially successful. And it's the business culture that emphasizes rapid scaling and aggressive growth over incremental improvement. And this creates companies that aim for global dominance rather than stable regional presence. And here's how this culture operates, because American entrepreneurs and investors talk explicitly about capturing entire markets and becoming monopolies. And this ambition drives different behavior than in cultures where business is viewed as a way to make steady income. And American tech companies use strategies like growth hacking and viral marketing, and they give away services for free to build user bases, and they raise money at huge valuations based on user growth rather than current profits. And they expand internationally as fast as possible to lock in market position. And think about specific examples. Because Facebook had no revenue model when it started, but focused purely on adding users, and only monetized after reaching massive scale, and Uber launched in dozens of cities simultaneously, burning billions in investor money to establish market dominance before competitors could respond. And Amazon famously prioritized growth over profits for over a decade. And this strategy only works with access to patient capital and cultural acceptance of losses in pursuit of market share. And compare this to companies in other countries which typically focus on profitability from the start and grow more cautiously. And this caution means they often get outcompeted by American firms that move faster and accept more risk. And here's why this culture is hard to replicate. Because it requires investors willing to fund losses, and entrepreneurs willing to risk everything, and employees willing to work in uncertain startups and legal systems that allow rapid hiring and firing. And all of these elements exist in the United States in ways they don't elsewhere. And the seventh reason is something that seems almost unfair. And it's the English language advantage, which makes American technologies naturally global, because English is the international language of science and business and technology. And here's why language matters more than people realize. Because software and websites and apps developed in English can immediately reach users across Europe and Asia and Africa who speak English as a second language. And this creates a massive addressable market from day one. And compare this to technologies developed in German or French or Japanese, which require translation before they can reach global audiences. And translation isn't just about words, it requires cultural adaptation and localization, and this takes time and money. And by the time a non-English product is adapted for global markets, American competitors have often already established dominance. And think about how this plays out in practice. Because Google launched in English and immediately had users from India and Nigeria, and Philippines and Singapore and everywhere else where educated people speak English, and Facebook and Twitter and YouTube all benefit from this same advantage. And even when these platforms add other languages, the core development happens in English, and the most influential users are often English speakers. And here's the network effect. Because once a platform achieves critical mass in English, it becomes the default choice globally, because everyone wants to be on the platform where the most people are, and this creates winner-take-all dynamics that favor American companies. And beyond commercial platforms, the same advantage exists in technical standards, because programming languages and technical documentation and academic papers are primarily in English. And this means people who want to work in technology need to learn English, which further reinforces the advantage. And the eighth and final reason ties everything together. And it's the ecosystem effect, where all seven previous factors reinforce each other to create a self-sustaining innovation machine that's greater than the sum of its parts. And here's how the ecosystem works. Because government research funding creates discoveries that universities patent and license to startups that get venture capital funding to build products for the large American market. And those products benefit from English language reach and aggressive scaling culture. And successful companies generate returns that flow back into venture capital funds and create philanthropic donations to universities and employ researchers who consult for government agencies. And this circular flow means that each successful innovation makes the next innovation more likely, because success generates resources and knowledge and networks that enable more success. And think about Silicon Valley as the physical manifestation of this ecosystem. Because you have Stanford and Berkeley doing cutting-edge research, and hundreds of venture capital firms providing funding. and thousands of engineers with experience at successful companies, and a culture that celebrates risk-taking and connections between all these elements that make deals happen quickly. And compare this to attempts to create similar ecosystems in other countries. Because governments build research parks and provide tax incentives and fund universities, but they can't manufacture the social networks and the accumulated knowledge and the risk-taking culture and the virtuous cycles that took decades to develop. And here's why this ecosystem is so powerful: because it's anti-fragile in the sense that failures actually strengthen it, because failed startups release experienced talent back into the job market, and failed approaches teach lessons about what doesn't work, and this knowledge circulates quickly through the network and informs the next generation of attempts. And the result is that Silicon Valley and similar American innovation hubs learn faster than anywhere else because they have higher rates of both success and failure. And when you combine all 8 of these reasons together, you see why American technological dominance is so overwhelming and so sustainable, because massive government research funding creates the knowledge base, and venture capital provides risk-tolerant financing, and universities bridge research and commerce, and competitive markets select winners efficiently, and large domestic markets enable scaling, and aggressive business culture prioritizes growth and English. Language provides global reach, and the ecosystem effect makes each element more powerful. And these 8 mechanisms work together in ways that compound over time, because each successful technology creates resources and knowledge that enable the next generation. And this explains why the United States created the Internet, which has fundamentally restructured human communication, and created GPS, which enables precision location for everything from navigation to agriculture, and invented the personal computer and the smartphone and social media platforms and search engines and e-commerce and streaming services and artificial intelligence and biotechnology and essentially every technology that defines modern life. And this dominance isn't weakening, it's actually strengthening, because the ecosystem advantages grow more powerful as they mature. And American companies are now investing in quantum computing and advanced AI and synthetic biology and space technology, and the gap between American innovation and the rest of the world is widening, not narrowing, because other countries are still trying to copy what America did 10 years ago, while American companies are building the technologies that will define the next 30 years. And understanding these 8 reasons shows that American technological leadership isn't an accident or a temporary advantage. It's the result of structural conditions that have been carefully built and maintained over 70 years, and that continue to drive innovation at a pace that no other country can match.